Hello, hello. It is exactly 10 o'clock at night. There we go. And I am somehow still awake. Drop in the chat if you can hear me and see my shining face. Can you hear me? Is it working? Perfect. See and hear. You might see a little bit too much. My Marcus is walking around in his underpants. We're going to try to keep this webinar PG-13 and make sure there's no embarrassing bloopers for the internet to enjoy. Glad everyone is here. We're waiting for a few more people. So let's have a look at the poll to see what you guys are answering. I want to know where you're hoping to move to. There we go. What region of the world are you considering for relocation? So we have 4 votes for Europe. If you feel open to it, drop in the chat where you want to move. Like, let me get an idea. I've done about 4 different immigration processes in different countries already. So maybe I am a specialty expert in the country of your choosing. We have 2 Latin America. That is so wonderful. I am constantly trying to encourage people to go beyond Europe because there's such an amazing world out there, and the cost of living is way better in Latin America. Drop in the chat what countries you're interested in moving to. Okay, Frankfurt, excellent choice. It's like the Dallas of Germany. Does that make sense? Because there's a lot of highways, there's a lot of big businesses, corporate businesses. Italy or Switzerland for Liz. Liz, did you see my post about how much money waiters make in Switzerland? If you didn't, they make $70,000 a year. $70,000 a year. Portugal, Spain, Italy, all your top 3. I mean, do you love food? Because that's obviously why you're moving. Australia, New Zealand, Holland. We're going to talk about Australia's point system a little bit today. Not many people know there's a point system. Ecuador. Okay. I know COVID is really demolishing Latin America. Colombia. I am desperate to go to Colombia. I worry I won't come back. I had 1 Colombian boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, and that ruined the whole country for me. But now I've healed, so I can go back. Peru, Nicaragua, and possibly Brazil. Ooh, that is very exciting. I have an Expedia office in Brazil that I'm trying to create a reason to go to. So maybe I'll see you there. I need to explore first, but Portugal looks pretty nice. Yes, I agree. Portugal is amazing. Andrea, Germany, I'm coming to you from Germany. It's so strange to compare the differences between what America has to worry about and what I worry about over here. Not to say that Germany doesn't have its problems, but it's a lot less dramatic over here. I'm also thinking about Poland or Georgia or Estonia or Romania. So that's a lot of different places. Let's narrow that down. I will say Poland 2021 is my jam. I go to Poland every single year because I love it so much. In Warsaw specifically, it's super international. I go to my favorite Peruvian restaurant before then going to my friend's gym. He is Mexican-American from Arizona. I met him in China. So Poland is a great place to live. Okay, we have a couple people in. We're going to get started. All of this is being recorded and will be emailed to you. So you can take notes, you can follow along and just listen. You can watch this recording later. The idea is at the end of this, you're going to understand the end-to-end process of moving abroad. And I really wish I had this when I was trying to move abroad. I made so many mistakes. I actually lost my passport the day I was supposed to leave. And it was in some secret bag of mine for some reason. And my poor mom had to buy me a flight to China 3 days later. I was a mess. Amsterdam, my favorite city in the world. I will die in Amsterdam. I'm gonna buy a little house and then just like live out my old age with my bicycle, my cat, and like my wiener dog. Marcus can come if he wants, but no pressure. And that's my plan. That's my plan. Okay, let's get started. If you just got here, please answer the poll so I know exactly where you're from. Let's get going. Share screen. Okay. Okay. Can we see my presentation? Drop in the chat. Yep. Okay. Ah, perfect. So I'm half and you're half. The presentation is half. Okay. Cool. Let's do this like awkward half. I haven't been able to completely figure out how to present it a little bit better. Let's try that. That's a little bit better. But let's get started. And also, I can actually see the chat to the left. So please drop in your questions and I'll keep going as we go along. This is an interactive session, so hit me with your best shot. I have done every single visa imaginable. So I'm ready to help. Okay, so let's get started. So welcome to my How to Move and Live Abroad webinar. I almost said masterclass. I have a lot of products. I am your host and educator, Vanessa MW. My full name is Vanessa Menchaca Wachtmeister. I am a proud Mexican-American woman from Los Angeles, and I'm actually currently living abroad in Munich. I just moved here like 1 week before Corona really took over Europe. I used to live in London for the last 5 years, and then before that, I lived in China for 2 years. And then like right in the middle, I moved to Turkey to be a foreign aid worker during the Syrian war. And that was a lot. So I came back to London and started to do tech instead. And you can DM me about that life at a later time. But full-time, I'm a tech worker. I work as an API integration project manager. So my company like sends me out into the world to go work along other development teams so they can integrate our technology. And that's actually how I've been paying for travel, or I'm not paying for travel, they're paying for travel. That's how they've been paying for my travel for the last year. In my spare time, I'm also a business owner. I own 2 businesses, With Love Travel and Wander Onwards. And I'm pretty sure everybody here is on my Wander Onwards page, but that's where I'm most active. That's where we talk about wealth and wanderlust and how to live your best life. So in today's agenda, I am so excited for this. We're going to be talking about 1, figuring out where the hell in the world that you should go. I see a lot of you have a lot of options. You're all thinking like, maybe this country, maybe that country. And I'm sure it's for a variety of different reasons. And let's focus on those reasons because these are your values. These are going to dictate where your movement is going. And that's important. Then we're going to talk about visas and immigration. This tends to be like the scariest part for everyone, but it's really methodical as soon as you understand what's expected of you. I've also been denied my visa. I've been rejected. So we're going to talk about an emergency situation where you need to go stand up to a government and say, hey, let me in. That's really it. Next, we're going to be talking about paying for your move because you don't always have to pay for you to go relocate. I don't think people know this. Other people will pay you to move abroad, if you can believe it. Then we're going to talk about finding work and tax. If you might have seen on my platforms, I made a $1,000 mistake this year on my taxes, and I had to pay a hefty amount of money for a wonderful lawyer to fix my problems. So from this, you're going to understand as an American what's expected of you. Just to clarify, this webinar is for anyone of any nationality. Just the tax section is going to be for Americans because it's so complicated. And then finally, we're going to talk about integration. Because if some random Mexican girl can go all the way to China and like make it, you can do it too. So this is actually a smaller part to my larger series, How to Move Abroad. And I actually have a masterclass that handholds you through a 5-week online course. And you're surrounded by other like-minded individuals. And our first graduating class has officially spread their wings and have flown the coop. They graduated with a 6-month timeline, end to end, of their entire move. And it's country specific, it's family specific, it's about finding jobs, it's about finding healthcare. And they've really graduated to a whole new understanding of what's expected of them once Corona is gone. This is for professionals, this is for long-term travelers, this is for partners of foreign nationals like myself. And then I thought it would be interesting to just touch on the fact that 100% of the people in my masterclass were people of color. 80% of them have a first generation or immigrant background, and 30% of them are part of the LGBTQ community, which is really unheard of because for as long as I can remember, moving abroad has always been for wealthy white people of privilege. And for the first time, I'm starting to see this wonderful new generation of young people of color going out and visiting places, experiencing the world, because we deserve to have this opportunity too. So really excited to see them thriving in their new locations. Okay, let's check the chat. Yeah, work is the main thing I've been concerned about. It seems like you need a college degree first for any good job from my search so far. Yes, so you still have options, do not worry. Another person is actually in the same boat as you. They don't have a 4-year university degree, but that's not the end all be all, do not worry. Before we carry on, I want to make an official disclaimer. I, Vanessa Menchaca-Wachtmeister, nor my affiliate, aka my business With Love Travel, I do not provide legal, tax, or professional accounting services. I am not a tax professional. I'm not a certified financial consultant. I just want to make sure that that is made aware immediately. And this presentation is for informational purposes only. So let's get informational, guys. Okay, I think the most important part of figuring out why you want to move abroad needs to be founded in your values. So when I say values, for me, it was really important for me to be surrounded by people who were really open, by people who spoke lots of languages, who could teach me things about myself, my career, my ambitions. I wanted to be the dumbest person in the room. So I chose a country that was difficult to thrive in. Like, China's not easy, guys. I chose it because I wanted to be challenged. I wanted a place that wasn't necessarily as friendly towards English speakers or Americans specifically, because I needed to see this experience for myself. Likewise, for yourself, you need to understand why you're leaving. First of all, whatever reason you might have, it's a good enough reason. Like, don't be doubting yourself or your ambitions. But if you want to think about what values you don't have at home that you're currently looking for abroad, this is something you need to focus on. So, with something like Brazil. Brazil seems like a beautiful, magical country filled with the hottest people I've ever seen and the most festive carnival outfits in the world. But if you're leaving somewhere like America because you want socialized healthcare, because you want social welfare, because you want a very specific type of living standard, then will Brazil be all of those things, given that the government is in shambles, they're not handling Corona very well, there's a lot of racial tensions in Brazil that don't often get highlighted because we're too busy talking about American racial tensions at the moment. There are pros and cons to every country, like even Germany. If one of your values is being in a very warm and friendly environment, I'm not entirely sure that's here. I'm just not. Just not. You have to work to meet friends and meet people out here, but that's okay because I'm here for other reasons. Likewise, Paige says, I agree, China was challenging. Yeah, that'll kick you in the ovaries, like for real, for real. Nina says social services, please and thanks. We'll get to this in the visa section, but based on your visa type, you're gonna have immediate access to these social services when it comes to healthcare, childcare, pensions. The one thing that you might not have access to is unemployment. Because when you're a guest in a country, they don't really want people to come here just to claim unemployment when they have so many other people claiming that. You're here to work. That's the reality. So the very first step you need to do before you move forward with your move abroad is you need to reevaluate your values. You need to figure out what's important to your family. Is that government friendly towards your demographic, whether you're part of the LGBTQ community or maybe a person of color? Are there social services for children if you're moving with a family? Or what we were talking about earlier, are there opportunities for people who don't have four-year college degrees? These are all things that you need to consider when choosing your country. But you have like over 200 countries to choose from. So there's a lot of options. Like don't feel discouraged if one country doesn't perfectly fit everything, because no country is perfect. Let's be honest. Let's see, Jamie says, very true. We want to be optimistic about our views, but we have to be real and transparent of what we might face in those countries. Exactly. But don't let that sort of realism stop you from doing crazy shit if you're young, single, and have nothing to like really answer to, because that's what I did, and that really made my entire existence. Okay, so I thought I dropped in this link into the chat, but maybe not. Let me highlight it and drop it in again. So this is a little quiz I put together, and this will, okay, perfect. I did drop it in the chat. This will help you get some inspiration about where you might want to go. So it'll evaluate your values, it'll ask you some questions about your family, and then it'll pop out with a region that I would recommend to you based off of that information. Is this like the end all be all? No, this is just to give you some ideas about where might be right for you and your circumstances. Okay, so if you know anything about me, you know I like to talk about social justice and being a more aware traveler. So a question I always get is, what's the difference between an expat and immigrants? And for the purposes of SEO, because you know Google, they be dictating everything, I use expat a lot in my blog posts, in my language, but I'm an immigrant. Make no mistake, I am an immigrant. I have permanently relocated outside of my own country. And here's the weird thing about immigrant versus expat. From the definitions that I present to you, it seems black and white. An expat is someone who comes and lives somewhere temporarily, whereas an immigrant is a permanent relocation. But for some reason, expat, the term, is only exclusive to rich foreigners from wealthy countries, often white, that move abroad, whereas all of the immigrants, the people of color, the temporary labor workers, the people who don't fit that description are often called immigrants, whether they're going to stay here forever or not. All over the world, there are people, nannies, workers, laborers that forcefully are removed from their country to go work for rich expat families, companies, whatever. And they don't really enjoy the same benefits, privileges, and opportunities that wealthy expats get in comparison. So just have this in the back of your mind as you start to move through your experience, because not everybody is going to be treated as you, despite their circumstances being technically the same. And as more enlightened Americans, it's important for us to go into the world with this understanding. Okay, let's carry on. So I've pulled together an easy to move to chart for Americans. Can you guys see all of them? I want to make sure. There we go. Okay, so this is based off of a bunch of research that I've done. It is based on how easy the immigration policies are and friendly towards Americans. It's based off of the opportunity to find work for Americans. It's based off of the popularity of this country for expats in general. So if you go to these countries, you're going to find a lot of people that look and speak just like us. And that helps you really start to build a community for yourself. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. Please, can you zoom into the graph? Yes. Let's zoom. There we go. Okay. Please take a screenshot of this so you can reflect on it later. It's also going to be in the recording, of course. But I often recommend that anyone that's doing this webinar or masterclass to start their research here, because you're going to find research in English. You're going to find things that are American specific. You're going to find communities of Americans and other English speakers in these countries more easily than in other countries. So as someone who is just starting out on their move abroad experience, it's often more helpful to have people around you that can empathize, that can give you tips, that can show you how to do something better. Are these ranked in any way? No, these are not. These are not ranked. Vanessa, is this more for expat and temporary immigrant? It's for both. These are for both immigrants and for expats. The point is, there are people that are waiting and willing to accept us into their communities because they know exactly how difficult it is for us to survive and thrive there. It does get a little complicated if we start debating whether we're talking about like wealthy immigrants or these laborer immigrants. So for the purposes of this explanation and chart, I'm referring to wealthy developed country immigrants and expats moving abroad. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so let's get into visas a little bit. Visas are terrifying. Drop in the chat if you have ever applied for a visa before. Say yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. Most of the time, as people with strong passports, so this would be like developing countries specifically, we often just show up, present our passport at immigration, and fuck shit up. Like this is what we've normally done on like holidays and travel. Jamie, never. I watch videos and it still feels like a hot mess. Well, my video is coming out in a few weeks, so hopefully that will help a little bit. Right now, we're not going to be talking about visa on arrival because these are short stay tourist visas. These are really easy to get, but you can't really work on them sometimes. I mean, wink, wink, if you've ever worked and lived in China. And the purposes of this conversation, we're going to be talking about long stay visas that allow you to remain in that country and begin to integrate. So here are the main types of visas. Pretty much 90% of all visas will fall into this. And then it's just semantics about what they're really called. So of course, we just talked about the tourist visa, which is the visa on arrival potentially. If you're an American passport holder, you can show up in the Schengen region, which is like Europe plus a couple of other places. And you can be here for 90 days. But that's not moving abroad. That's like relocating for an extended amount of time, or even just traveling. We're talking about the more difficult visas, the student visas, the work visas, the family visas, the specialty visas. Now, a specialty visa would be anything from a work-study visa, which is really popular in Australia. That could be an entrepreneur visa, where you have to bring a certain amount of cash to prove that you're a business and that you've set up yourself. That could be a generational visa, where you prove that you have ancestry to a particular country and therefore you should have the opportunity to integrate and live there as well, and so much more. Let's see about the chat. Let's see, China, LMO, I know. Under the job tables, if only there were an European country that was just as easy to work in as China. Well, is it Lithuania or Estonia? One of these countries has a digital nomad visa that you just apply for in the States, and then you get a year residency. And you don't even have to be there for that long to get this visa and to continuously be a a European visa holder. Yeah, I know. I'll Google that so I can find that and recommend it to everyone. So when we're looking at these visas, you have to remember that all of these visas have time limitations. Even if you're on a 10-year work visa, a 10-year family partner visa, you will have to reapply at some point of your journey until you get permanent status or a passport. Now, people always want to get greedy and want to get that passport, but permanent status is just as good. And sometimes these countries don't allow you to have a passport or double passport if you're an American citizen. So Germany, for an example, Germany won't let me have a second passport. I have to give up my American passport. Does this seem that bad? No. Can you potentially not tell another country that you have a second passport? Also, maybe. There's a lot of gray areas, and it's Estonia. Haha! From the noggin. Glad we cleared that up. Visa stuff is always living in a gray area. So you need to be more comfortable with the idea of not potentially knowing all of the concrete facts, because things be changing 24/7. Like Trump just outlawed H1B1 or H1B, the work visa. He tried to block this for a bunch of people, and one of my colleagues got stuck in the United Kingdom 6 months out from when his visa actually started because they wouldn't let him in. So things are constantly changing, and that's something that you need to get a little bit more comfortable with as you approach this. Now, based on the first slide, I was speaking about visa hopping. That's the idea that you jump from a tourist visa to a student visa to a family visa until you're eventually settled status. So that's exactly what I've done in my UK visa journey. I arrived on a tourist visa. I was there for 6 months. I got into loads of trouble with immigration several times, but I managed to like talk my way through. In the comments, oh, I don't know if you guys heard, but ICE is trying to get rid of immigrant students who are currently studying in America. I have also heard this. So that's what makes this whole crazy journey like so out of your control. You can't dictate what a government decides to do, and you're just one person. So becoming more comfortable with being uncomfortable is a very important part of this journey. Okay, so this is my UK visa journey. I hopped to 3 different visas, and then eventually I got settled status. So that means I can just remain there until I die of natural causes if I really wanted to. This is what your visa journey is likely going to look like. You'll probably start on a tourist visa, you'll move into a work or a student or a family, whatever your circumstance is, and then you will go from there. Do not be afraid of this. So as an example, I included the UK marriage visa process into this slide. Let me zoom for you guys. There we go. Okay, so first you need to fill out the visa application form, which is like 25 pages long. Honestly, they asked me every country I've gone to for the last 10 years, and that was just a crapshoot. They also asked me for my marriage certificate, and this is a weird situation where countries have different requirements. So the UK just wanted my marriage certificate. Fine, done. Okay. Germany wanted something called an apostille, which is like an official stamp from the government. And they don't do that outside of the United States, period. So we had to pay my mom, or we had mom ship it. No, we paid $120 to ship it, to expedite it over to America. And then this poor woman had to stand in line to get a stamp for like several hours from a government agency that was only opened on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Then she had to FedEx it back to me because I was leaving the country in like 2 weeks and I needed this apostille. So be sure you get everything notarized before you leave the United States. Then, of course, you need proof of your relationship. So this would be joint bills, this would be joint bank accounts, We sent them like Facebook screenshots of like us getting married or us being in Rome, like corny shit like that. But you need to do this. And if you're bringing someone else, you need to make sure that you can prove that you have enough money to support these people. Because like I mentioned before, other countries don't want people coming in that are just going to take resources or benefits from local citizens who have been paying into Social Security their entire lives. So for the United Kingdom, you have to prove that together, you and your partner have a combined income of at least £18,000. £18,000. Like, no one believes me when I say that the salaries out here are much lower, but the cost of living is also lower, so you can survive. And according to the official UK government documents, they believe a family of two could survive on £18,000 per year with socialism. So they're being taxed as socialists. I think this should give you some peace of mind when you're thinking about how much money you need to come with abroad, because prices are just not comparable outside of America and inside of America. Like, let's be real on this. But then back to the whole rich immigrant versus, or rich expat versus poor immigrant thing, the application fee is £1,500. So if you think about like what percentage that is of the £18,000 that they're making a year, that's a huge amount of money. This is how they start to filter out people. They also sometimes put in English language study requirements. They create hoops for people to jump through to make sure that they can filter out the rich English-speaking ones that will integrate a lot easier. Let's check the chat. Yes, thankfully Harvard and MIT sued. Yes, good. Always good to keep in touch with the trusted soul in your home country. Yes, thank you, Mom. Mom's moving to Portugal to retire. Like, I've decided it. She's now learning how to do it. Nina, but London is crazy expensive now. Girl, I know. Girl, I know. People just barely get by in London. Like, let's be real. Because there's a lot of foreign money and that like inflates the cost of living there. But at the same time, people just get by in a completely different way than America. Just getting by in the United Kingdom means you still have a roof over your head, you still have food on the table, you have socialized healthcare, you have government-sponsored childcare and opportunities. In America, you don't have anything like that. So I think it's important to highlight that. Do they base this on if you went somewhere else in the UK? No, this is just UK-wide. Can you talk more about prices in the US versus abroad? Does Germany have a similar income requirement? Micah, what? Yeah. Okay, so can you talk about more about prices in the US versus abroad? Okay. In tier 1 cities in Europe specifically, I would guess you would need $800, $500 per month for a 1-bedroom flat in a major city. You're going to be sharing that flat. You're going to be sharing with other people, but it's nothing like the $1,600 that my sister was paying for a 1-room in San Francisco for a room without a window. It's completely different. I pay $20 for my phone bill. I know, so I can eat. I eat good. But I know my friends can spend less than $100 on groceries in the United Kingdom and in Europe per month. It's completely different. We have things called Lidl and Aldi, where these are budget grocery stores that literally get their shit from outside. Like the garden patch is outside. They pick it up. They don't put it in fancy packaging. They put it in the grocery store, and I will see Porsches outside of the Lidl shopping at the same place that we do. It's a completely different ballgame. Yeah, love me some Aldi too. Does Germany have similar income requirements? They have a healthcare requirement where you have to be mandatorily insured, but we did not have a income requirement. And my application for the Germany visa was 60 euros. Peanuts. Okay, let's move forward a little bit because we're gonna talk about some other stuff. Also, my computer seems to be dying, question mark, so I might have to take a quick beat to just plug it in. Okay, paying for your move. So most people are convinced that they have to pay for their move, but that is not true. You do not have to sponsor your move. You need to find someone else to sponsor your move so you can save that money and stack that cash, okay? There's plenty of opportunities for work sponsorship. You have these like inflated expat packages where major S&P 500 companies will pay for your flight over, your accommodation, your family's accommodation, your children's education at an international school. Like that's the very tippy top of the expat triage. So think of it this way. Then the next step down is like additional assisted living that they provide. So this is what English teachers get all over the world. So maybe they'll get their flight out, but they definitely have their housing covered and their food throughout the day is covered as well. So all you have to pay for is your phone bill, maybe dinners out, and then whatever travel that you want to do. It's a sweet, sweet deal. And you're only expected to work a couple hours a day. Like when I was teaching English in China, because that's how I first got there, I was teaching 2 to 3 hours a day. And I had an apartment fully paid for with other foreigners. And I was getting about $1,600 in my bank account at the end of the month. And that didn't seem like a lot to my American friends, but when you're living in China and you can live comfortably on like $400, $500, because I'm spending that amount of money on food going out, I don't know what the hell I was doing with that money. That's life-changing. Like I could have been saving $1,000 a month and putting that to my student loans. I ended up traveling with that money and getting into a whole bunch of debt, but that's a different story. Could you zoom just a little bit? Yeah. There we go. Wow, where in China did you live? I was living in Beijing. I was living in northern Beijing, so outside of the Second Ring Road, and that was fine. I eventually moved inside of Beijing to like live my glamorous expat life, and that's when I started messing up my life. Bro, as a single 22-year-old, that teacher life is perfect. Absolutely. Go meet yourself some foreign women. Like whatever you want to do as a young person that's not married and don't have children, go experience that life. You owe it to yourself. A second option is scholarships. So a lot of people don't know that these are available to reputable universities all over the world. So in 2016, I got a full ride scholarship to study Chinese at Fudan University, which is one of the major universities in China. I had just completed my master's course. My visa was expiring, and I was like, holy shit, I need to figure out like what's my next step. But from my experience, I knew that I didn't need to pay for my next move abroad. I could just get someone else to pay for it. So I did the application. I sent in my grades from my master's program, which is focused on Chinese studies and language. I did a health checkup and then sent in those documents. And then I had to redo my student visa for 2 years. 1 month before I had to decide, Marcus ended up proposing and I got engaged and then we got married. So like that whole thing went down the toilet. But it makes me feel good to know that I had figured out successfully a way to get someone else to pay for my relocation to China. They were going to cover flights, accommodation, food, spending money, all booked. And this was a 2-year program. So like that's 2 years of my life settled right there, which is amazing. And then another option you have if you're choosing to study abroad is a government student loan. So I also did this. I took out a government student loan to do my master's in the United Kingdom and my master's for 2 years in London with a $9,000 penalty for being a foreign international student was $16,000. $16,000 for a master's degree in London. And yes. And that's what really changed my life, honestly, because then I had the qualification that is highly recognized all over the European Union. That's when I started getting jobs that were better paid. That's how I started negotiating my relocation from the United Kingdom to Germany, because I had these credentials. So if you're one of these people that don't have a bachelor's degree, it is hella cheap to get a bachelor's degree out here in Europe, even if you pay in cash. Even if you pay in cash. I've seen engineering degrees for less than $5,000 in Berlin. And this is why I keep telling people, if you're not already through your educational path, really consider moving out to Europe and giving this life a shot. That's a single year in America. That is a semester in America. If you don't mind me asking, what school did you get your master's from? I went to SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies, and that is part of the University of London. So my school specializes in developing nations, languages, economics, and actually the East Indian Trading Company started it as like a way for diplomats to get trained up before they were sent out into the real world. And these are English-speaking programs in Europe. Yes, Europe has many, many, many international students from all over the world, and the common language is English in these institutions and universities. These degrees will also say specifically in English or in German or in Spanish or whatever you need to do. My computer is dying. Give me 1 second to plug it in. Oh yeah, so as all your British homies were from China, or all your British homies were from there in China. Yes, we are the major feeder school into China because we are the #1 Chinese program in the world. Of course, my Chinese sucks now, but what are you gonna do? One moment. Okay. You guys with me? Not as cute of a background, but this is what happens when you have no European extension cords, only British ones. Okay, plugging her back in, and we're ready. Okay, you guys with me still? What's the most surprising thing that you've learned so far? Yep, Cassie's here. Drop in the comments the most surprising thing you've learned so far. I noticed that the blue travel books that were behind you, do you recommend any of those? I recommend all of them. Let me show you my favorite. This is my Bible, Where to Go When. Whenever I'm feeling uninspired, I look at this book and I figure out where the hottest countries are in December. I figure out where the hottest food is. I got this for $6 at a charity shop. It's amazing. It is The Lonely Planet's Where to Go When. Okay. Let's see. What are we saying in the chat? School is actually being affordable? Yes. Anywhere other than America, school is affordable. Check the question box. I hope you have a question from Hope. English-speaking schools and programs, yes. How much more affordable is it to live abroad? Would love to know more about the day-to-day expenses. Amazing, definite order, good, good. Yes, affordable schools, it's amazing. I will get to those questions at the end, because I want to make sure that we are concisely hitting that 1 hour, and then we can spill into the questions. Okay, so let's talk about finding work abroad. Now, think of the hardest thing you've ever done. And for me, as a young 22-year-old with like no real world experience, 23-year-old with no real world experience in her career, I could not find a job in London, and that's why I did my master's. Now, this was because, one, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I honestly had no idea. And two, there is a resident labor market test in the United Kingdom, which makes companies prove that you are a invaluable hire and that no one else but you can do this job. Now, this seems daunting because Europeans, they have so many languages, they have so many qualifications, but it's not as scary once you understand how it works. Another requirement for this resident labor market test is that this job needs to be advertised for 28 days, at least formally. So here's where we get interesting. So just because this labor market test has this fancy name, it doesn't mean that you are facing other Europeans and people who are trying to get this job head to head so aggressively. Essentially, the way many of my friends found jobs, the way I found a job is you need to create networks and relationships in the country that you want to move to, whether that is online or in person. And then these opportunities will start to pop up and you can apply with your CV or resume, matching the job description identically. So this is how they get around this. If the company can prove on paper that you match the qualifications that they're looking for, then they don't really care if you're straight out of university. They don't really care like if you were doing banking and now you want to do drama. The government just wants to see on paper that these boxes are checked, and you can do that with your company helping you. Like that's as simple as it is. For jobs that are more open to foreigners, I've made a little list down below. So common expat jobs would be teaching, whether it's English or an international school. Can I also just say that being an international school teacher is the closest thing you're going to get to winning the lottery? Honestly, these people get inflated private school salaries with their accommodation paid for, their flights to and from paid for, their summer vacation paid for, their daily food paid for, bonuses, completion bonuses of up to $10,000. Completion, all you got to do is stick it out for the year. And honestly, if I have like a nervous little breakdown or I don't know, something in my life falls apart, I'm going to go to Dubai and be an international school teacher and just live my best life. My friend paid off $60,000 worth of student loans in a year and a half because she was making $60,000 at her student university, at her international school, and everything was paid for, so that was cash in her pocket. Other opportunities for jobs abroad would be working at an international company like I do. So I work for Expedia, and this is an international American company, and they're able to send me all over the world to go work in these different offices because, you guessed it, my CV matches what they're looking for in the resident labor market test equivalent in these different countries. And yes, Nina, shocked emoji face. Yes, Leslie, wow. Honestly, I can't believe these teachers don't just do this until they die. It just seems so normal. Oh, also on the international school thing, if you have children, they will pay for those children to go to that international school that you're teaching at. They will pay for your family to be moved abroad. You'll get additional money for the stipend of your family that you bring over. Yes, guess what? Get you some of that international school teaching money. And you don't even need to be a qualified teacher. You can go teach marketing at the International School of like Germany in Beijing. You could go teach drama at the American International School in Kuwait. Like, you do not have to have a proper teaching degree to do this. It is incredible. Cassie, we need to hear more about the Expedia position. Okay, so I actually got the Expedia job while I was in the UK. I'm gonna brag a little bit. I beat out 250 applicants for this job. I actually lied to them, and I was like, oh, I have like another job opportunity, and they're like calling me. They're totally calling me. So they ran me through 7 rounds in 3 days. I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning to do my first 2 rounds, and then I was there in the evening to do my next round. And I did that for 3 days. And they ended up calling me and giving me the offer. I quit the next day. I hated the job that I had before there. I was like being bullied by this woman, and I didn't know anyone in Expedia. I applied cold on their website directly, and I got it. Hell yeah, girl. Are employers accepting if you have years of experience in lieu of a degree? In Europe, more than America. Yeah, for sure. The problem with work visas is a qualification is going to be necessary. It doesn't need to be a university degree necessarily, because apprenticeships are so popular out here. So if you don't know what an apprenticeship is, it's work experience that you agree to have for like 3 to 4 years, or like the equivalent of a university stint. And from that, you get a decent wage, real life experience. And for that reason, work experience is just as good as a degree in certain scenarios. Where do we go to find those teaching positions? You should go to the international schools directly. So type in American International School, city that you're interested in. And that's how you start your search. Because for most of these jobs, you will have to apply directly. There is no like international expat database for these highly paid expat jobs. There are platforms, and we'll talk about this in the integration section, that are dedicated to expats specifically, like Time Out, and they will list local job opportunities that are paid at a local salary and don't necessarily have visa sponsorship. Are foreigners eligible for apprenticeships in Europe, or same issue as resident labor market test? I have not looked that deeply into this, but if you have a qualification from a school, so like the equivalent of an associate's degree, there are apprenticeship mobility programs that will move you into that apprenticeship program. So this is a little bit different. In London, we had, they're called work schemes, but schemes in the UK is not a bad word. It just means program. And in these work schemes, you'll have drama majors with a 3-year degree in drama enter a banking work scheme. And for the next 2 years, they do an apprenticeship in banking to learn how to be a banker. And then they're making like 100K when they graduate. It's bananas. And yes, Cassie, women do need to stop bullying each other. I don't think I've ever cried more in my life. But you know what? I survived it. I'm in a job I love now, doing shit that's really cool in my opinion. So you live and you learn. Coming back to the expat jobs, some more opportunities. Medical or administrative staff in hospitals. So if you speak different languages, you could be a administrator, translator of some sort, or obviously bring your nursing, bring your doctoring skills over. You could work for an NGO or a charity in the field. So this is what I was doing when I was on the border of Syria in Turkey. I was sent to Turkey to be like a coordinator, a program coordinator for our programs in Aleppo. And because I had my SOAS degree and because I had experience in developing countries, that's what made me eligible for this opportunity. With the NGO and charity opportunities in the field. In the field is the important word because in the home country, you don't get paid anything. In the field, you get your rent covered, you get your home country salary straight into your bank account. You get a living stipend. You get flights every 6 to 8 weeks back home or elsewhere, paid for the inconvenience of not being in your home country. That was crazy. I got $1,000 to live on and eat. I had a private car that would take me everywhere. I lived right next to work, so I never used the private car because I didn't need to go anywhere other than work, really. And it was a really, really cushy life. I really can't say bad things about it. This would be something that someone who works for the United Nations would get, but you can get it for much, 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 much smaller organizations as well. Then you have these unofficial jobs or work exchange jobs. And this would be like an au pair, and you would actually be on a student visa and you would be living with a family. So your rent would be taken care of. They'd give you spending money potentially, and all of your food would be covered as well. They might even give you a car because you have to like bring these children back and forth. So that's a great option. You could be a woofer. I've never done that because I'm not strong enough with manual labor, but basically you go to a farm, an organic farm, and you learn about farming and you learn how to hoe and you learn how to pick apples and pineapples and mangoes. Yeah, do the freaking woofing. Australia is super popular, but don't go during the summer because you will die from the heat, or maybe something will bite you. I don't know. But they won't pay you anything to do these alternative volunteer work programs. Like, that's the point of the experience. You're there to volunteer. And then you have entrepreneurial opportunities. So there are entrepreneur visas or investment visas if you have like over $200,000 to pump into the economy or buy a house. So if you have your own business and you don't have $200,000, you can actually apply for an entrepreneur visa, and you have to prove, at least in Germany, that you have at least 10,000 US dollars in your bank account at all times. So on top of that, I can live in Germany no problem on $1,500. Like, honestly, I'm not even budgeting at that point. That's how great the cost of living is out here, truly and honestly. Okay, well, let's keep going. I am overtimed, but it's okay because I feel like you guys are learning and participating, and that's what's most important. Okay, strategy for finding work. The easiest thing to do is to connect with expat forums online. So you can do a quick Facebook Google, expats in China, expats in Vietnam, Americans in Vietnam, something like this. And then you're going to see a message board with all of these resources, job openings, apartment openings, things like that. Then you can go to expat-specific resources. Like I mentioned, Time Out and Internations are the two most popular global resources, and that would connect you with local opportunities. So a marketing company that may not be international, they need a head of marketing for this amount of money. If they're advertising on these expat platforms and forums, they're typically going to be very generous local salaries, but still not the expat package that we talked about. I've been on a local salary my entire life. I have never had an expat package. I'm doing just fine. You can't survive. Then network in person. Use that charm, girl. Use that bubble. People want to root for people that they know. They want to help people that they like. So I would always, always, always go to networking events and just like make friends, exchange information, get WhatsApp, get WeChat details. And this is how I was able to get in front of so many interviews without having any qualifications. I got to the semifinal round of an engineering like job opportunity. I am not a software engineer, but it was because I was able to like speak properly and to convey myself well, and people wanted me to do well, that I got that far. Also connecting with recruiters in that country directly on LinkedIn. So ask them for a coffee, send them your CV directly, ask them to let you know about upcoming opportunities in a city of your choosing, because then you're in front of them. Most people wait for recruiters to come to them. No, I invite this recruiter to coffee and I offer to pay for it. Consider other industries as ways in. So we're all about pivoting here at Wander Onwards, because you grow, so your life grows and your career grows. So initially I graduated with a degree in English because I thought I was going to go be a lawyer. Nope. I then started learning how social media works, and I went viral. And so I started pitching myself as a social media marketing manager. And then I got really sick, so I taught myself how to code because I wasn't going anywhere from my bed. I was bedridden for like 3 months. And then I started pitching myself as a web developer. Then I went to university and I studied economics and Chinese. And so I started pitching myself as some sort of like developing nation program manager, which is how I got my NGO job. I didn't like that NGO job, so I went back to the United Kingdom and I started talking about money. This is when my money phase started. And I managed to get an internship at Bloomberg. And so I did that, and I ended up not getting the full-time job, which freaking crushed my heart. Man, I took that so hard. But then I got a job at a education tech company as a project manager because I Googled how to be a project manager and just started putting it on my CV. That was the job that I hated, but it gave me real life skills. It gave me like credibility. And that's when I applied to Expedia and got my full-time job. So lots of different pivots, lots of different ways that I found these opportunities without any experience. I just made it work. And then lastly, if you go to the country first that you're trying to move to without a job, you're going to increase your likelihood of finding a job because people will take you seriously. They'll know that you're there for in-person interviews. You'll have a local phone number on your application. This seems to increase the likelihood of you getting an opportunity, but these are all going to be local salaries, not expat salaries. So it's really like give or take. Lots of jobs, LOL. Should we lie on our resumes? I would never tell you to lie on your resume. I would just tell you to understand how your industry speaks and to reflect that in your CV with the skills that you already have. So in tech, we have something called a Scrum Master, and this is a glorified project manager that knows how to do sprint ways of working when doing software development. Great, so I already had a year of project management underneath my belt from my ed tech job that I hated. I went on YouTube and I started to teach myself Scrum. I did a Udemy course on Scrum. I started doing whatever free resources I could online for Scrum. So when I showed up to my Expedia interview, I talked about Scrum like it was just another day in my life. I applied Scrum to my old job. I explained why it worked, what value I could bring to this new job. And then day one, I got up there on stage and started doing my scrumming. And this is how I demonstrated my value. Yeah, embellish. Is web developing good if we want to work remote? Yes. Yes, it is. That is the #1 way to work remote. Okay, let's talk about tax real quick. Tax is only important for Americans. If you are an American abroad, the US government classifies you as an American resident regardless of where you are. So you always have to report every single year. Did you make any money? I don't know. You still have to file regardless. There's something called the foreign earned income exclusion, which allows you to write off up to $105,000 from the US government. So they can't extract extra taxes on that money because you've already paid another government that money. So anything above the 105,000, then the United States gets greedy and is like, oh, I want a little something, something. I want a little something, something of that. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. But if you're earning under that, you're golden. You just have to file correctly. Next, you have the F bar, and this is where this gets tricky. And this is how I screwed up as well. If any of your bank accounts abroad equal 10,000 or more at any point in time of the year, you have to report that bank account. You could have 2,000 there, 2,000 there, 2,000 there, 2,000 there. Doesn't matter. Report it. They're not going to ask for any of it. They just want to know where your money is because they're like a jealous boyfriend that always wants to know where the money is. It's uncomfortable, unfortunate, but unfortunately you have to do it. When you start to have more money and more wealth, that's a whole different other webinar that I will eventually put together, but it's been a real learning experience for me. Paige says, this messed up my taxes after working in China. LOL, girl. Yes, I know. How critical is it to speak the local language of the country you are in? It really depends. So I went to China with like no Chinese experience. I learned on apps badly. And then I finally started studying Chinese at the business university in Beijing for a year. And that's how I started to learn. But I got a job without speaking any Chinese. Integration. Okay, so we just talked about language a little bit. So the language apps that I love and adore are Memrise and Babbel. I don't like Duolingo because it's super rigid when they're teaching you things. Like I was taught how to say, this is a war crime in German. Like, when am I going to use that? Whereas Memrise actually gives you videos of different people from all different regions of Germany, and they speak in their like weird native accent. And that's how you start to learn how to differentiate accents here, which I thought was really helpful. Does FBAR apply to joint bank accounts with spouses with dual citizenship? That is a very good question that you will have to ask a tax attorney on, or a tax accountant, because that is unfortunately not my circumstance, so I don't have any experience in that. YouTube is also a really great option. Watch videos for German. I'm watching how to sell drugs fast online, and that's been hugely helpful. There are cultural centers in all of these countries. So in Germany, we have the Goethe Institute, and there are thousands of Goethe Institutes all over the world where people in Singapore can go to learn German languages, cook German food, and socialize with other German people. In China, we had the Hutong, and this taught foreigners Chinese, how to cook, how to interact with Chinese people, social etiquette. They're great. Every country has one. You just have to sniff it out. And then finally, we talked about personal networks a little bit, where you're starting to go onto Facebook groups. Check out Meetup. Meetup is an international platform. You can meet all sorts of people from everywhere. Time Out is my #1 resource when moving anywhere, because they're in all the major markets and they have a lot of really helpful information about nightlife and food for expats specifically. And then Internations, which is a little bit more formal. Okay. Would you recommend learning the language before arriving to the country you're going to? I would recommend learning survival language and then learning formally here, because your accent is going to be whack coming from America. I did one Chinese course and I couldn't even say, like, I couldn't even count when I left that course. I did 2 months in China. I'm counting on all my fingers because I have to figure out how to like count my money and like ask for different things in Chinese. And I can hear and parrot what the rest of the world sounds like. So it was just not comparable. I learned it so much more quickly that way. Paige says, couch surfing is helpful when I used it, but those sound helpful. Yes, I can highly recommend Airbnb experiences as well as couchsurfing. Okay, that is the end of our presentation. So a few things before we jump into questions that are coming up. You've obviously seen this on my social media, but Finances in Fuego is still available for anyone who wants to participate in it. The first one's about financial wellness and investing. The second one is about creating a business, and you can potentially use this business as an entrepreneurial visa justifier to other countries. So keep that in mind. In September, I'm releasing a beginner's budget dashboard so you can kind of get your finances in order before you prepare to leave the country. I'm also doing a transition into tech webinar in September so we can learn how to get and scan these opportunities from all over the world. And finally, of course, if this seems a little bit scary and daunting and you would like me to handhold you through the entire process, my Live Abroad Masterclass starts up again with the live classes October 1st in preparation for the November election. I don't know what's going to happen. Who knows? And that's my webinar. Thank you so much. Whew, my throat is a little bit scratchy. Let me stop sharing my screen and check out some of these questions. Close video. Whew, I'm sweating up in here. Will we be able to watch this later? Yes, you will. Don't you worry. Circling, oh, there's a number one. I'm a software developer and have a sweet, fully remote gig in America. Okay. Is there any scenario that would allow me to get a work visa in another country, but keep my job in America and just be remote in another country? Probably, like in a technical way, yes, I'm sure it's possible because countries do not talk to one another. Can you, as an individual, manage 2 jobs at once? I'm not sure, girl. I really don't know. While European and international companies are not as harsh as American companies are with work hours, they still require work. So I think in this scenario, an entrepreneur visa or a work study volunteer opportunity might be your best bet, because then there is no expectation for you to do a set amount of hours, and you can still do your full-time job with your American salary. Oh, also there are language courses that you can do that will give you 1 to 2 year student visas, and they're very, very casual. They are more expensive than universities, but if you're really genuinely just interested in a visa, this is my #1 tip. Go for a language course. Circling back to taxes, if we have an online savings bank in the US, yet we work in Europe or Latin America, does the FBAR still impact us? If you don't have an opened bank account outside of the United States, you do not have to deal with the FBAR as far as I'm aware. I would reconsider this with a tax attorney and accountant just to be sure, as I am not a financial advisor. With the NGO charity work, do you have any org suggestions? Anyone but the United Nations. I freaking hate them. They're the worst. And I feel sad and disillusioned for saying this, but working alongside them was really quite painful for me. Let me just pull my hair up. So for the organizations, now the one that I worked for was the Mentor Initiative. And that is a smaller NGO that focuses on medical issues facing the world, specifically in like transmitted diseases from bugs. So I was in Kenya fighting malaria. I was in Turkey fighting leishmaniasis. They're like really specialized. There's also comedian? I will have a quick Google. If you Google international NGOs, you should be able to find some, and then you're going to be looking for field-based work. All I can think of is UK NGOs at the moment. I'm blanking on United States. What's the one with the blind children? Type in the chat if you know. Okay. Do you know if you're allowed to work on a family residence permit? Yes, you are. You are completely allowed to work send your kids to school. You can tap into the social health care here. You have full flexibility. You can even file for unemployment if you're on a family visa out here because you're entitled to that residency to a degree. Let's see. Yes, vote, 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 vote. But I'm just saying, if it don't go well. Are there age limits on student or work study visas? For Australia, there is a limitation for work visas. I'm not sure if it's with work study visas as well. I have never seen a age limitation on student visas for universities. I had like a 65-year-old retired man in my Chinese program in Beijing. So there's lots of opportunity for mature students to come in and learn and start to get their study on. See, ooh, spill the tea on the UN. It's been a whole lot. Okay, so when I was working for the smaller NGO, it was so dangerous that we didn't have branding on anything. Our office building was a normal looking apartment that was in a normal looking apartment building, and then we gutted it to turn it into an office. The UN rode around in these UN branded blue trucks all over the city. They threw crazy parties everywhere. They rented out the best hotels to like host their staff and spend donor money. A lot of the people there were not there for the right reasons. They had like savior complexes. They had drug problems. They didn't have any language skills more often than not. It was really bizarre. They were told, oh, I went to university in Switzerland and now I'm here to save all of these poor Arab people. It was really bonkers. With your teaching background, do you have any comments on which country has better advantages with teaching benefits with Korea or Portugal? Your two options for now. So Korea pays incredibly well, but Portugal will have a much more relaxed standard of living. So like you're gonna roll into class at like 10 and then you'll be done with class at 2. You will have a much slower pace to life, which is what some people want. Whereas in Korea, it's much more diligent with the education, and you're going to be expected to be like a proper teacher. In some cases, not all, but you will have a very generous salary. You will have lots of expats around you. People will be very interested to talk to you. So it just depends on what lifestyle you want. Let's see. Georgia, the country, also just released a remote visa as well. Bali has a remote work visa as well. Favorite place you have lived, which would you recommend for a young family? Oh, Germany for sure. For sure. The government gives you like 200 or 300 euros per month to send your children to nursery. And that nursery costs $200 to $300. Like they do an amazing job for families. Maternity is 2 years here, 2 years. So you can enjoy that if you're out here with your family. Another good place for families are Switzerland, France. I would argue Poland, Denmark. How could I forget Denmark? Yes, 2 years, 2 years. And you get, for the first year, you get 80% and then 80 or 70%. And then it's up to your company's discretion about what they want to do after that, but you're legally entitled to your job for 2 years. Trying to think, what other place? So I haven't done any traveling in Latin America. It's like, so full disclosure, but Mexico in like CDMX was an amazing experience for me. I saw lots of young families there too. I think that would be a wonderful option if you're thinking about moving somewhere in North America. And then in terms of Asia, I love Vietnam. It's super safe. I saw lots of young like expat children and families there. There's a French influence there as well. So you have a really like dynamic culture there that I think people would really love if they moved there full time. And then, of course, my favorite country to live in would be China or Germany, because in Germany, I have a much more adult life here. I have a good salary. I have my routine. I'm building wealth. But China was just like crazy cool. I learned so much about myself. I loved being that like weird foreigner that stood out, and it brought me so much joy to like scare people with my Chinese. Maybe I have like a complex where I need to always be special. I don't know. But the cost of living was dirt cheap too. So I really feel like if I were to go back as an adult, I could really thrive there, enjoy the languages, enjoy how diverse it is, but only in the major cities. Like if you go to the countryside, you will not see diversity. Okay, guys. Oh, last question. Are you able to work and go to school at the same time? Perhaps be a teacher while working on a degree at the same time. Okay, here's the hack. If you can get into a local university, then you should teach English on the side and do cash in hand, and you can fund yourself that way. So, well, rewind, get a scholarship to this university, and then teach English on the side. You can literally just put up posters being like American English teacher, 20, 30 bucks per hour, and people will call you. Did you have a TEFL or TOEFL for China? No, I did not. In China, the qualifications are very fluid. I did have an English degree, and I tell myself that's why they let me teach there. But you can get away with not murder, but improper documentation. Let's call it that. Okay, guys. That concludes today's How to Move Abroad webinar. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I really appreciate all your questions. I really appreciate you investing in this webinar. Like, this means so much to me, guys. This is like what I love to do. And that's connect with you guys and like talk about the stuff that I'm passionate about. Have a wonderful evening. This will be on replay immediately here. And then I will email it to you guys at another time. So have a wonderful evening. Please DM me with any more questions that you might have. Let me know when you start getting the process going. I want to be there with you guys. Like, I want to see you thriving and living your best life out there. And don't forget, if you want to get hand-pulled through this, my course opens up October 1st. Okay. Yes, I am excited for the dashboard too. I've been working my ass off for this. All right. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you so much.